And it's now my pleasure to introduce U.S. Senator John Thune. Senator Thune is the senior senator from South Dakota and the chairman of the United States Senate's Commerce Committee. Senator Thune is one of the leading voices for cybersecurity in Washington, D.C., and he is the author of the Cybersecurity Enhancement Act, which was passed by Congress and signed into law in 2014. The legislation codified the NIST cybersecurity framework and took important steps to increase our nation's commitment to cyber research, workforce development, and cyber literacy. So, Senator, thank you for joining us today, and all of you please help me welcome Senator Thune.
Well, thank you, Mark, for that introduction. I am honored to be here, and I also want to, this can't be a more timely event when I saw those numbers. I mean, that is pretty stunning when you think about it. And so I want to thank SDN Communications, the South Dakota Telecommunications Association, and Dakota State University for making this event possible. I know this has been in the works for a while, but I'm glad that it's to see that it's come together. I think it's, as I said, it's a very timely event. It's valuable, in my view, to have a regional cybersecurity event where South Dakotans and our neighbors can learn about the state of cyber attacks and security strategies, including how to use the framework for improving critical infrastructure. That's something, as Mark mentions, developed by the National Institute of Standards and Technology, or NIST, and they are represented here at this conference, and I'm anxious to have all of you hear from them. Mark testified on behalf of SDN at a Senate Commerce Committee field hearing that I held in September at Dakota State on confronting the challenge of cybersecurity. At that hearing, he pointed out that while attacks against large corporations, and we all know these, Target, J.P. Morgan, the U.S. Office of Personnel Management, those are all very newsworthy, but that every single day, small and regional companies in South Dakota are being attacked too, and that nobody is immune to this threat. SDN, for example, sees a large number of threats against its own network and its own customers every single day. So I'm pleased that all of you are here to learn more about ways to improve your organization's cyber posture. The nation faces a growing array of threats in cybersecurity, from criminals to seek to gain access to sensitive or proprietary information, to steal our identities, disrupt and deny access to services, or even to sabotage networks and control systems. The growing connectivity of our economy means that cybersecurity now touches everything around us, from the critical infrastructure that bolsters our transportation, our communications, our power grids, to our personal cars, our cell phones, and now even refrigerators. The Department of Homeland Security recently warned of a sophisticated malware campaign that has compromised numerous industrial control systems, largely in the electric sector, using what is called black energy malware. Media reports allege that malware caused a December power outage in Ukraine. Unfortunately, attacks like these on critical infrastructure seem to be on the rise. In addition, a rise in the use of so-called ransomware poses a threat to hospitals, businesses, and even individuals. These aggressive assaults hold computer systems and sensitive information hostage, demanding a ransom in order to unlock the data. It is clear that malicious hackers will stop at nothing to collect more money and more data for future attacks. There's no single, universal, silver bullet solution to combat these attacks, but we can and must continue to improve our ability to mitigate cyber risks. Since our discussions at the Commerce Committee field hearing at Dakota State last September, Congress has in fact taken some steps to address these risks. For example, 2 weeks ago, with 95 senators supporting the measure, the Senate passed a bill that I authored called the Federal Aviation Administration Reauthorization Act, which focuses primarily on strengthening aviation security and protecting the flying public. But one of the provisions that was included in that legislation is particularly relevant to today's discussion because it focuses on addressing possible cybersecurity risks to airplanes and to air traffic control systems. My office has also continued, as Mark mentioned, to oversee the implementation of the Cybersecurity Enhancement Act of 2014, which I co-authored. That law prioritized cybersecurity research and development, took steps to increase public awareness about cybersecurity, and provides training for the next workforce of cyber professionals. It also authorizes, as was mentioned, NIST framework, which is the topic of today's event. As many of you already know, NIST acts as an important partner to protect the nation's infrastructure, technology infrastructure, I should say, and I appreciate the fact that Matt Barrett and Celia Paulson are here from NIST and made the trip to South Dakota. While the framework is still in the early stages of its use, it's been well received, largely because it's been based on the input of organizations that use it. To enable innovation, the framework is technology neutral and completely voluntary, and that was something that we worked hard to ensure in the law. It draws from a suite of existing international standards and best practices, but it avoids telling companies which ones to use or how to use them, thereby providing a flexible approach to dealing with the dynamic and ever-changing universe of cyber threats. The framework is also intended to be utilized at all levels of the organization, from the C-suite to the IT department. Research from McKinsey and the World Economic Forum found that companies identified senior management time and attention as the single biggest driver of maturity in managing cybersecurity risks, more important than company size, sector, and resources, which highlights, I would add, the importance of leadership and direction from senior management on this very important issue. Importantly, the framework is not intended to be one size fits all. The challenges and risks of a rural communications company are different than those in healthcare. Every organization faces different risks, different threats, different vulnerabilities, and risk tolerances, and has varying levels of resources, so the way that each organization uses the framework is going to vary. Of course, there are the same aspects of the framework that make it flexible and scalable also mean that some will view it as ambiguous. For companies that do not have large security teams or IT backgrounds, more guidance may be necessary, which is why I think events like this are a great way to get that discussion started. But what I hope will happen is that the NIST framework will become essentially the Swiss Army knife of cybersecurity, offering many concepts and best practices as tools, not requirements for your organization. Many sectors, from communications to healthcare to automotive, are looking to adapt the framework to their own sector. For the communications sector, and I know it was a good representation today from that world, the FCC's Communications Security, Reliability, and Interoperability Council proposed sector-specific guidance to help communications providers use the framework. And we're going to be closely following, I might add, how the FCC and other federal agencies support a voluntary risk management approach and work with industry in this area. But the federal government cannot and should not do it all. We all share a responsibility to protect our information and systems and to increase our cyber literacy. And South Dakota can be very proud of its contributions. Last summer, Dakota State University, with investments from SDN Communications, held the first ever Girls in Cybersecurity Camp to encourage high school students to pursue education in the field. It's wonderful to see Dakota State and SDN take initiative to train the next generation of cybersecurity professionals, filling a critical shortage in this space. I hope that other institutions will follow their lead. Well, gatherings like this are an integral part of our shared efforts to increase cybersecurity for the companies and consumers that rely on the internet and the connected infrastructure. While Congress can pass legislation and conduct oversight, which we need to do constantly in the process of conducting oversight in this area, this event will discuss some of the tools that you all can actually use, which is why I think an event like this is so useful and so meaningful. So I want to again thank SDN, South Dakota Telecommunications Association, and Dakota State University for hosting this event, and a special thank you to all of you for participating today and for your efforts to increase awareness and to up your game in the cybersecurity arena. I hope you all have a great meeting over the next couple of days, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to make a few remarks. Thank you.